Hello, guys. This is Phil, and I wanted to do the second video to basically describe what I ended up doing trying to make my homemade dip. I was trying little saltier flavors that I really did not get to experience yet. I tried some coffee and salt and fruity flavors with a pinch of lemon, and it gave me a very tart tobacco flavor. There was some fruit to it. It was not bad. It actually satisfied. But then with the last half of that pound of tobacco in the earlier video, I wanted to try the pan method and basically heat up apple cider. And I was doing it like I saw on other videos, and I was reducing the apple cider, which was not really syrupy, but it was a more thicker fluid. And I just realized, okay, well, I'm reducing everything and I'm losing fluid. I'm losing a lot of the character. And I thought it would be thicker and thicker, perhaps like almost like frosting, or perhaps like, you know how you spread frosting with a knife? Perhaps like a taffy gooiness, so to speak. None of that gooiness occurred, but the fluid was reducing to almost nothing. And so I'm assuming that's what a lot of the videos were showing, and that's why you had to add the molasses. Like I said before, the molasses I did not like the theory of, because of having really, really juicy spit, okay, for lack of a better term, and then feeling like your mouth gets really full quick, and then you have to go somewhere and perhaps expectorate on the ground away from people just so it didn't look really like, man, who is that guy? He was raised in a barn. And I'm not knocking people who do chaw. As a younger kid, I did chaw also before I went to Skull hardcore for a few years in my preteen years. And then I did Copenhagen for most of my young adult life. But I did a lot of chaw. I remember when Red Man was the big thing in the late 70s and early 80s. I did Beech Nut, and I tried all the plugs like Days of Work, Cannonball, some other one named Applejack, not the chew Applejack, but something Applewood or something like that. So, there's a place for that in my heart, and it would cure a nick fit if I did not have anything, okay? So what I'm saying is I love all tobacco, but my preferred is the bitterness, the saltiness, the kind of flavor like the natural fine cuts. And I see with this tobacco in my experiment here, it's basically be-ribboned pipe tobacco. And it's all natural, it's fresh, you can smell it. You can definitely taste it if you don't have enough, I want to say, more flavor with it. And I like that kind of tart tobacco flavor, don't get me wrong. But I don't want it to dry out so quick also, conversely. So this is my the end result of my first bag. And then when I made the first batch, and it had that very rich tobacco flavor to it, it's kind of tart, it's kind of strong. I like that, and I'm not trying to get a nicotine buzz per se, but I like the relaxation my body interacts with nicotine, I don't want to be all jacked up at the same time, but I like the flavor, and, like most tobacco connoisseurs, that's how we appreciate the kind of different tastes a lot of people would not like, or they'd be like, oh, that's disgusting. Well, have you ever tried it? It's not just about getting addicted to nicotine. It's, to me, it's basically about the flavor and a nice kind of calm sensation. It's like if you're hyperactive and your mind is racing, then the rebound effect of a cup of coffee actually helps. And with a lot of tobacco connoisseurs, that's how we look at it. It's like, okay, I'm kind of wired. I want to take a dip. The nicotine keeps me up a little, but at the same time, I feel mellow with that flavor. It's a unique flavor. It might be an acquired taste, and I don't really promote anybody starting that. But if that's your niche and you like tobacco, then try some things at home differently. You know, save some money. That's why I was trying this project, because I am a prepper. And so when it came to it, with the first batch, I tried some apple slices on top, letting it sit for 24 hours. And then that gave a nice aroma. Don't get me wrong, but it was still not as sweet as I liked, not as salty, sweet and sour, or kind of that flavor. I want to say like a saltwater taffy or a caramel or a butter brickle. You like the sweetness, but you also like that little salt aftertaste. The sweetness is supposed to be at the back of your mouth, and you're like, okay, that's delicious. That is not that bad at all. And to the front of the mouth, where the front of your tongue is, you have that kind of bitterness. You're like, oh, all right, I like that. It's not going all over my mouth. So these first two batches with the first bag, when I did the second batch, I put some cinnamon, I put apple cider, and I brought it down to a slow boil, and it evaporated a lot. And before I knew it, I was at almost a half a gallon of apple cider. And I was like, okay, well, it's very tempered with the heat. And so I added more salt to that. And I really didn't still want to get towards using some kind of molasses. I don't want that thick gooiness, but I do want sweet and a little bitter and a little tang and what have you. I want a bunch of different flavors, not just pure goo like the old days and taking a chaw. Again, I don't knock that, because a lot of different people, especially baseball players or sports athletes, love that long chaw they can put in and they can spit on the field and what have you, whatever the stereotype is. Many people like that flavor. I'm not knocking it, but I'm trying to make a dip, okay, that's very flavorful and juicy, but not necessarily like some of the juicier dips either, like Kodiak. Kodiak has a very strong kind of different mint flavor to it, or wintergreen flavor to it. I like the older wintergreen flavors in the cardboard cans and the tin top, because it would kind of dry down a little, if people remember that. It wasn't all super juicy, and then you're like, okay, well, this will be done in about 5 minutes. Or it's too much, and it tastes like too much sorbitol, and it tastes too artificial, so it's not really pleasurable. And so doing this with the bee-ribboned pipe tobacco, you could say that might be my first mistake, because I'm used to natural fine cut, or natural flavor fine cut. Okay, like the Copenhagens, like the Kayak Natural, like the Longhorn Natural, like Redwood. I used to do Redwood for 2 or 3 years up in New Jersey, because that was the cheapest I can find in the local Walmart. And I buy 10 at a time for a week of work. And I go back to Walmart and I buy as much as possible. Then I did Longhorn exclusively for 2 years in a row, because I could order my tobacco from Pennsylvania at a very inexpensive price. So I did the Longhorn Fine Cut Natural, and I love that. And I still love that to a certain degree, until I came back to Virginia for years, trying all kinds of cheaper stuff like the Red Seal. Red Seal, if you notice, it has that gritty taste to it, like they added something also. To either dry it down or to, I want to say, cut your lip. I don't know if that's the case, but it feels like it, to cut your lip so the tobacco nicotine is absorbed easier. I don't know if that's planned or what have you. I don't care, but even Red Seal was pretty good, like the old Copenhagen. The old Copenhagen, I didn't like that fiberglass anymore. I got tired of it. And so It did hit the spot, and although these tobaccos I speak of would still hit the spot now if I didn't have any at the time. Okay, but many of my friends I do know, moving to a different location, a different city, they don't do tobacco. Coworkers don't do tobacco. They smoke. Some of my coworkers, all they do is smoke. And the other half don't do anything. So it's like I try to be discreet as possible, and they appreciate that I'm a tobacco connoisseur, and they respect that. I don't like cigarette smoke because of my bronchitis. But when we hang out and we have a cigarette break, I have a tobacco break, and I bring a spit cup out there and I leave it off to the side, being discreet about it. I'm allowed to, and there's no shame in it, but I'm not trying to spill the cup. I'm not trying to spit in front of them on the sidewalk and make the place look uninhabitable and what have you. So I am like trying to make a perfect dip, and so as soon as the tobacco shredder comes, I will spend a few hours with the whole bag of tobacco, breaking it down into a fine cut like the dip I'm used to. Not these two examples here. But these two right here are basically the mix when I did the first batch and the second batch with the apple cider and salt and a little bit of cinnamon. And I tried it almost immediately, and it was fantastic. I said delicious before about the first batch. However, this was even better. It was like a miniature chew, yes, with the bee-ribboned tobacco. And it was still enough just to have a dip, and I could literally keep it in for a half an hour to an hour and enjoy it and not try to rush it and see how much spit actually, or how much juice, spit was generated, and did it still give off a lot of flavor after a while. And it sure did. It sure did. However, the texture was still like that bee-ribbon tobacco. Okay, so I mixed the first batch with the second batch because it was so juicy, and it was very good. It was a lot better than the first one. So I mixed it all together, and right now with this video, I'm basically going to take another taste test, because there were some theories about letting the tobacco sit and age, and I've let this tobacco sit pretty much for 2 or 3 days, but I don't know if heat's involved. I don't know if it's just regular room temperature. I don't know these things, like lifting off the lid and letting the whole thing air out, so a lot of the moisture evaporates, and then I'm assuming the curing and the flavor is supposed to attach to the tobacco. So then when your mouth and its fluids activate that those flavors, that's when the juices start again. I don't know that. It might do that, but I also don't want to deteriorate the tobacco flavor either by letting it sit in an uncontrolled environment, or just open air in general. So it's not really evaporating, and it's not really doing anything to cure either. I do not know. If you want to leave a comment after this video, please do. I love tobacco, and I'm willing to try anything, so stand by. I'm going to lift these over, and I'm going to have a taste test. Thank you. Okay, I'm back, and I just flipped this over just a second ago, and you can see all the juices on that and how flavorful that would look putting it in your mouth. And so it's very moist, and I'm going to take one pinch here. See, it's like a very long cut. It's not quite chaw. Okay, you can see how it is. I can see actually putting this in a can and enjoying it all day. It is that delicious. Okay, so this has a lot of flavors of apple popping up, and it's very I want to say on the juicy side, and it reminds me of a more wet plug with the flavor. And it's very dark tasting in my mouth with all that kind of dark juice. Whether that be molasses of the old chews or the actual apple that they added in somehow, whether it was apple juice flavoring. But yeah, this is fantastic. This tastes exactly like, I want to say beech nut or red man, but at a little smaller level of size. And the juice is there more and quickly. And very, very fine. I like this. This is not tobacco, straight tobacco flavor like that be ribboned, that cut up pipe tobacco. If you ever tried it before, maybe you were younger, that pipe tobacco, just putting it in your lip and see if it's the same thing. Of course it's not. It's got that kind of dry flavor, that kind of tart flavor, and nothing generates in your mouth. Well, this is completely different. And this is very moist, and this is, I would say this is just like almost cured. I don't know what the terminology is, but maybe this is another 2 weeks, and it would be almost as good as store-bought tobacco. I'm very impressed with the apple way of flavoring it. You know, using apple juice and heating up the apple juice and reducing it and trying to caramelize it. Wow, that is the best way. Adding some cinnamon, adding some salt, anything else you want to try. But this is definitely the way to go. All right, guys. Well, I just wanted to give you an update about what I'm learning so far. And really, this is fantastic. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.